What's up? What's going down? This might not be for you. So this is a collection of DVD sets of WWE, WCW wrestling. Mostly stuff from the 80s and 90s, most specifically. Now, I thought I would do a review of these wrestling videos, DVD collections. When I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, pro wrestling were like my heroes. Like, it was like G.I. Joe, Transformers, HeMan, wrestlers. And so anyway, a few years ago, I got nostalgic and I wanted to watch some of the old stuff. And I guess I'm just going to review these in no particular order. The first one, the John Cena Experience. I actually got this one recently because I became a fan of John Cena. I think this was like a Christmas present or something from my family. So this is a decent set. I mean, it has matches with him, Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, Triple H, Edge, The Miz. It's cool, but I'm just a big John Cena fan. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of this particular DVD set. Even though I said I'm going in no particular order, I decided to start with that one. The other one, King of the Ring. King of the Ring was this amazing tournament that they came out with. This has the epic Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell match. This also has Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle's street fight where he gets thrown into they're trying to break the breakaway glass and they hit the wrong one. It also then it has from like when it first started, Bam Bam Bigelow, a classic veteran against Bret Hart, and then one of my favorite matches from it was Stone Cold versus Jake the Snake. Just seeing the two of them in the different eras. This is a pretty cool set. I like this one. Also, Rob Van Dam versus Brock Lesnar from 2002, so that has a little bit more recent stuff. Now, the Great American Bash. These are all like best of. All these DVD sets are like best of, and almost all of them are 3-disc sets. I think they all are 3-disc sets, yes. So it's the best of each particular thing. So it's best of King of the Ring, best of Great American Bash. This one is one of my favorites because it has, to me, my favorite was Sting. He had the face paint. He was like my hero. And this has him and Ric Flair when he wins the championship at the Great American Bash. It also has Flair versus Rhodes from the 80s, Dusty Rhodes from the 80s in the cage match, and then Sting versus Muta, the Great Muta. And the Steiners versus the Freebirds, when like tag teams were like something big. Like tag teams aren't like they used to be. Like it's entertainment and it's fun and whatever, but there's not like Steiners versus Freebirds, just like the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. There's a whole bunch of other ones, and you'll go through those in the rest of these DVDs. This is one of my favorite ones. This is one of my favorite sets. I only just named off a few of the matches because there's so many. This also has some of the newer stuff then that would go into the Kevin Nash and Jeff Jarrett, Diamond Dallas Page, Dean Malenko versus Chris Jericho, Chavo Guerrero against Eddie Guerrero. This is a cool set. Next, another of my favorites. This is probably, I don't know, actually it looks like these I like all of them, but this one has another Flair vs. Sting from 1988, and then Dusty Rhodes commentary through the whole thing, telling the story. Like all these DVD sets, like it's worth it to listen to the commentaries and the talking in them. Dusty Rhodes is fun to listen to. Maybe he's not for everybody, but I like listening to him tell the stories. This would have Flair versus Terry Funk in the I Quit match. Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express. That was an epic display of the tag teams, what tag teams were, and how it was. Flair versus Luger, Sting versus Ravishing Rick Rude just then. Brian Pillman, Flying Brian versus Steve Austin. That's cool for a lot of different reasons. And then Sting versus Flair in '94. So this is a cool set because they would face each other 6 years later from their original match at the Clash of the Champions. They would face each other in '94. Awesome set. One amazing set. Now this one is the best of the War Games. Now, I wasn't going to go over all the matches in this one because there's so many of them, plus there's too many names that I didn't want to have to write down because they're mostly 10-man matches, 5-on-5 and stuff like that, 4-on-4. But this one has the Dusty Rhodes commentary, and the story of the creation of the War Games is fun to listen to. And this has the one where Pillman, Sting, and the Steiners face Sid, Psycho Sid, and the Horsemen. This is where Psycho Sid botches the powerbomb and about kills Brian Pillman. This is a cool set. I didn't write down a bunch of the matches, but this is a cool thing if you like to just see the steel cage matches and the way that it was set up for them to do the way the guys would come into the match. This is where it was at. This 2 rings next to each other with cage over both. This was crazy. This was before Hell in the Cell. This is before all that stuff. This was innovative, crazy stuff. This is when it started to get fun. The next one. Now this is one of my all-time favorites of these sets. The Best of Saturday Night's Main Event. Now I could have went on and on. I kept writing stuff. But this is where Hulk Hogan really when they went and started doing stuff on NBC, and they had these primetime national exposure. That's when it really started getting crazy and fun, I think, for the WWF at the time before it went to WWE. Hogan is in this heavily. Randy Savage versus Jake Snake Roberts is awesome to see. The Hart Foundation versus Bulldogs. Again, this is when the tag teams were amazing, and there was stories to be told, and there was rivalries, and the championship meant something, and not that it doesn't now, but it was just different. Honky Tonk Man against Randy Savage, and then this is when the Mega Powers, Hogan and Savage, would form. This also has Randy Savage against Bret Hart, sweet match. It would feature a bunch more Hogan stuff. $1 Million Man versus Savage, Hogan versus Harley Race, Savage versus the Giant. This is when Andre the Giant. That was really cool. Twin Towers. Then this is when the Twin Towers would take on the Mega Powers, Savage and Hogan. And then this has Hogan against the Boss Man in the cage. And then it has some of the newer stuff. Edge versus Cena. Shane versus Shawn Michaels. The formation of DX. But this is awesome. This is probably one of my favorite sets. This is one of my favorites out of all of these. Now, this was the first one that I got. I started with this one. Starrcade. Now, for 80s and 90s wrestling fans, a lot of people would already know, but this was where WCW / NWA back then was really trying to take on Vince McMahon and the WWF at the time, now WWE. When they created Starrcade, everything changed, and it was a pay-per-view. I can't get it to focus. Anyways, this set is my favorite because it was my first. It's worth listening to the commentary on this. I love listening to the talk. This had Hulk Hogan against Roddy Piper, Sting versus the Great Muta, Road Warriors against Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express on the scaffold. They would fight on this scaffold over. It was the craziest thing back then. Nobody. It was like extreme wrestling before there was extreme wrestling. For me, at least, this was my experience. Like, to me, these were my heroes. This was me as a little kid in the 80s and what I had access to on cable television. And for me, then it would have, again, these tag teams, like the Road Warriors against Telly and Arn, and then Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express on the scaffold. And then you had Dusty Rhodes and Sting against the Road Warriors. Tag team matches meant something. Dusty versus Flair. The Road Warriors against the Steiners, another tag team match. The Road Warriors versus the Steiner brothers. At the time, those were epic matches. And then like when the Steiners took on Lex Luger and Sting, that's not on here, but like the tag team, they could build up such a story and they could have such huge main event tag team matches. Sting versus Flair in the Iron Man tournament. They had the Iron Man where they, a lot of, I love listening to Jim Cornette. If you find Jim Cornette's talking about the old wrestling stuff, he's my all-time favorite. I can listen to him all day long. And let's see, what else is on this one? Magnum TA against Tully Blanchard in the steel cage match for the I Quit match in the steel cage match. This is Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA. That was back when, like, that was the real early stuff. Let me see, that was from November 28th, 1985. Okay, and so this one's cool. It's got like, a couple of these have these little books where it lists all the matches. But basically, in the 80s and early 90s, I was a little kid. And these were like epic heroes to me. Sting was my all-time favorite. Of course, I liked Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. I liked Macho Man Randy Savage. There's Hogan again. But, the War Games, it was crazy. When they had the two cages, it was two cages with a roof. This was Hell in the Cell before Hell in the Cell. And then they would have these Clash of the Champions. The WCW, they decided, we'll just have these awesome pay-per-view type events, but on cable television. TBS, WTBS. The Great American Bash. There goes Sting again. That was my favorite. And then, this is a lot of the newer stuff. Let's see who's on there. I mean, now you got, like, Booker T. To me, I loved Booker T. And then there's Stone Cold. But you got a lot of, Sheamus is even on here. Edge, Brock Lesnar, anyway. And then I had the John Cena experience, but I'm a huge fan of John Cena. So anyway, I guess that's my review of these DVD sets that I've had for years. I watched them like once, and then I don't know, I've went back and watched a match or two here and there if I get nostalgic and see a YouTube clip or something, but it's worth owning, if you're a big 80s, 90s, wrestling fan or, history, like the Starrcade from the 1983 to 2000, the 80s and the early 90s of the Saturday Night's main events, the Clash of the Champions, a lot of that stuff molded what wrestling is today. Like, there is no Roman Reigns, and there's none of that if it wasn't for all this stuff and who laid the foundation. And this is just, I don't have any AWA or USWA. All that there was other territories and there was other wrestling establishments, obviously, but this is what I was exposed to. This is what I saw. I've lived in Michigan my whole life, and this is what I had access to on cable television. But there would be no Roman Reigns, and there would be no, I don't know any of the big new guys now. I'm not into it as much now as I know Roman Reigns because he's on all the time. And we know John Cena, and my daughter and stuff. We've become fans of like Bayley. We love Bayley. My daughter loves Bayley. We're huge fans of She likes some of them other ones, Alexa Bliss. I don't know which ones she likes. We know of some of them. Paige, we have a wrestling game for the Xbox. And me and her play. She likes to, play me versus her. I let her win. No, she actually beats me sometimes. But anyway, thanks for watching. That's my review of these DVD sets of the mostly 80s and 90s wrestling. For a lot of you, this probably wasn't for you. To people that are subscribed to me, this is not like most of my videos. So if you've made it 15 and a half minutes into this, thanks. I love all these DVD sets. I would encourage anyone to buy all of them, any of them. One at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I bought these over the course of probably a year or two. But thanks for watching. Appreciate each other. Love each other. And take care of them kids.